How much should you be practicing? That's what we're going to talk about in today's paint talk. You're probably wondering, am I practicing enough? How much do other people practice? Am I practicing too much? What's too much? What's too little? All right. The straight answer for this, first off, is you can never practice too much. It's impossible. Let's just get that out of the way. So practice as much as you can. So the question really isn't how much should you practice. The question is what can I do to make it so I can practice as much as possible? How can I increase my practicing volume? So that's what I'm going to talk about. Because I really believe the amount of practicing is very important. I know a lot of people say, oh, practice smart, not hard. Try to practice smart and hard, and everybody learns differently. This is personally what works best for me, and how I've seen progress is just repetition, repetition, repetition. Even when the very few times I have had instruction in one form or another, the instruction doesn't do anything. Like once you get valuable information, it really doesn't mean anything unless you're able to practice it to really get it. You can be told what to do. It's not that difficult to find information on there on how to paint and what to do, but actually putting it into the action is another thing. You can have Tom Brady sit down with you for an hour and show you how to throw a football. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to throw a football very well. You're going to have to, do a lot of practice and practice and practice and practice. And I've seen so many times I hear something, I get a piece of instruction, or I watch something and I feel like, oh, I get that. And it's really not until way down the line through endless repetition where it actually finally clicks. And that's what you're looking for, and that's why you show up every day and practice as much as you do, waiting for those moments where you'll do a painting, and even if it's a study, you'll know, like, oh, this is a breakthrough painting. Like, I just got past a plateau. And you might even not even know you were on a plateau. And a lot of the painting is you don't even know what you don't know, and the only way to find it is through practicing, and you really have to show up as much as possible. Now, I've talked a lot of before about a lot of ways to practice, to make it easier to practice every day, make it effortless, having a designated place to paint, having a designated time to paint. You do that for other things that are important. You have a designated time that you brush your teeth, that you eat breakfast, that you work out, that you go to work. Make a time to paint. It doesn't have to be it could be 45 minutes, just something to get the ball rolling. And I believe that volume of practicing is so important that I would even be willing for you to do things that aren't the best practices in the world if that meant you would actually paint more. Like, if you have to trace, if you suck at drawing and you're not good at drawing and you have to trace, do it, because you will get to a point where you won't want to trace anymore. Because you want to take your painting to the next level. But if you're so intimidated at drawing that you just never pick up a paintbrush because you're intimidated at drawing, well, that's going to keep you further back than tracing. So trace, if that's what you want to do. Like, I don't, think tracing's a great habit to get into, but if that means that you're going to paint more, yes, do it. Another thing, which I haven't talked about in other videos, is why you paint. And I feel like this is a big one. I'm finding out from people that are messaging me about why they can't sit down and paint. Every painting doesn't need to be a full completed painting, a masterpiece. Do studies. Do it for you. Like, enjoy the process. Like, I honestly really don't care that much about my paintings once I'm done. I'm already thinking about the next one I'm going to do. So I'm never working in this like result-oriented mindset where I just want to get it done. But that being said, whatever it takes for you to want to sit down and paint, do it. Like, I don't care what it is. Like, I don't care if it's you want to do it to impress somebody. I don't care if it's to post something on social media, do whatever it is to increase the amount of volume that you're painting. This also goes for subject matter. Don't think that every time you need to paint, it needs to be a subject that is meaningful to you or that you're really into. I mean, if there is some, if you know I mean that is a way to paint more, is find subjects that are really interested in you and that will motivate you to want to paint them. The best motivation is just wanting to actually do it. So if the subject matter does help, that's great. But I know there's a lot of times where you're just like, I don't have anything to paint really. I haven't been inspired to paint anything. I don't have any ideas right now. Fine, like paint a bowl of fruit, like paint your hand, paint anything. Like someone's, you know, sleeping on the couch next to you, paint them. Like do anything you can. You know, find a picture that you like. I know a lot of people say, oh, you should paint from life, you should paint your life. And yes, painting from life is the best thing to do. But being realistic, you can't always paint from life. You can't always have time to set up a still life with the right lighting, you know, in your box with your cloth, or have somebody willing to sit down and pose for you for a couple hours, you know, or a great landscape with the right light. You know, you're not going to always have that. So go to pictures. That's how I learned to draw and paint, was from pictures. I hardly ever did it from life. I only did it in the classroom just because of the actual physicality of it and tangible. Like it was hard to actually do. Like it was hard to find somebody to sit down and pose. It was hard to set up a still life because you're not, you know, always in the greatest circumstances to do that. But if you let those not great circumstances get in the way of you actually painting, so in the end of the day you didn't paint anything, then what's the point? So be willing to paint something that, one, will fail, and two, you probably won't show anybody and it like won't be a completed painting. That's completely fine. That's what most of your paintings should be. You know, you get stuck in this mindset of thinking everything you have to do has to be a completed masterpiece. You're just not going to paint as much. Like you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to play around and do stuff that nobody will see. I have 10 times more paintings that nobody's seen than ones that people have seen. And the last thing I want to say is, our last thing I want to talk about is how to practice painting without even painting. I'm like, how do I do that? Well, the first thing and the best thing is drawing. I know you're thinking, well, drawing's not painting. No, but drawing will only help your painting. Trust me, like the better you are at drawing, the better you're going to be at painting. It's like, oh, well, I'm not dealing with color and this and that. It doesn't matter, because drawing and being able to, you know, draw things correctly, the right proportions, you know, perspective, angles, everything, it's so much of painting. Also values, you're still dealing with values. And drawing can actually help with your values, which is the thing, probably the biggest thing that painters get wrong is values. Is, you know, how light or dark a color is. And using just, you know, black and white with a drawing, that's all you're doing is value. Now, another little thing that I do, you might think it's crazy, but I really believe it helps, is when you're just sitting around, you know, doing nothing, you don't have access to pencil and paper, your paints or anything, you know, you could be on a car, plane, sit and watch TV, anything. Just kind of look around and think, how would you paint stuff? I do this all the time, especially outside. Like I'll see landscapes and I'll just kind of in my head go through like how I'd paint that tree, how I'd lay down the grass, kind of what colors, identifying, you know, what's the darkest thing in the subject matter, what's the lightest, you know, kind of what's the value range, how would I crop this, you know, just sitting there effortlessly, just kind of just thinking about it. And that visualization, it's still reps. Is it as good as actually doing it? No, but it is something. And you'll see a lot of Olympic sprinters, when they're getting ready, you'll see them look up and just stare ahead for a moment and then put their head down. A lot of times what they're doing is they're visualizing themselves running it before they do. That way, inside them, their mind has already run the race. And so it's a similar thing. So when you do come across things, you've kind of already painted it before. You've had enough time to think about it, and it's a familiar space in your mind of seeing things and breaking it down and how you would paint them. So just those mental reps help a lot. So practice as much as you can. It's the bottom line of this video. Now, how you go about doing that is going to be different from person to person, and you need to be honest with yourself if you are practicing it as much as you should. Now, everybody has restraints, everybody has a life, everybody has things that they got to do, and it's hard to find time to paint, but I really believe that you make time for the things that are important to you, and I believe that painting should be important to you no matter what. If you are making money at it, if you're not, whatever your plans are with it. I think that the process of actually sitting down and doing something with your hands, creating something start to finish, is only going to enrich your life. With that being said, I'm going to end this video so you can get out there and practice. If you want to follow me on Instagram too, and I'm painting on a daily basis, you can at Forza43. I'm Christopher Natero here telling you to go get painting.